When I think of listening to it, I think of walking on the street.
Yes.
You know, I think of walking on the street. It's like maybe overcast or a sunny day. And this is kind of like the soundtrack to doing
this
that.
Is a good album to take public transit to your dead end job.
Absolutely.
Like if you have a job you hate and you're taking public transit to it, this is the album for that. Good afternoon, beautiful people. This is another episode of Album Mode. We review a new album every single week. We look at the lyrics, the production, the overall aesthetic of the album, and how that album fits into the context of that artist's career. For everyone watching on YouTube, we love you. We appreciate you. Like this video, subscribe to us, and of course, leave us a comment. Let us know how wrong we always are. My name is Adriel Smiley, a.k.a. AdrielSmiley.com, a.k.a. Adriel Smiley Official, a.k.a. The Godfather, and a.k.a. Champion Scribe. We're here with His Royal Highness, a.k.a. The Bunny, a.k.a. No Longer a Munch, King Grant.
What's happening, people? We're back. Album mode. This time with the great
Yes.
Common.
Yes.
And his famed, critically acclaimed, iconic, with one name, B. I'm here rhyming accidentally. Chris Smooth. This is one of those albums that, I'm going to be honest with you, I did not listen when it came out. I was a child. I was not on the conscious rap wave, but I was aware of its existence. I was on the Kanye tip at that time. I think Late Registration had just come out. 2005? Late Registration?
Maybe College Dropout.
College Dropout. I was a Kanye appreciator at the time. At the time.
Yes.
Let me clarify, at the time when I was a child in 2005.
I'm screaming.
Yeah, that was an interesting time in hip hop. Common, Kanye, Talib Kweli, trying to think about who else was up at that time, were considered backpackers, conscious rappers.
Most Def, Consequence.
Most Def as well, Consequence in that. Most Def was less backpacky, maybe. But regardless.
I'm like him and Talib Kweli are in a group, so I feel like they're both going to get it.
But I felt like Most Def was a little bit less, maybe that's just my perception at the time. It seemed a little bit.
No, Most Def spokesman woman is what you're trying to say.
Yeah. So we're in this backpacky, conscious rappy. This is somehow becoming super popular in the mainstream. B, Common, executive produced by Kanye West. I think that's important to mention at the top because Kanye's production influence is immense. We've talked about this pretty much. I feel like we talk about it every 3-4 podcasts, but that's really how immense the influence is. And to be an executive producer for another Chicago act was a big deal. And then to have a bunch of different vocals, background vocals, features, etc., was huge. So B by Common. We're in it. It's a retro review. I'm wearing my retro Bulls starter jacket on purpose for this. We're in it.
Yeah, this was one of those albums that listening to it as an adult has a whole different tone. Like, I understand more now why it was considered almost an instant classic. People say this is his magnum opus. This is the Common album. Listen to it now as an older person, I'm like, I understand where that comes from in the moment. Because when I was younger, I knew the singles. Yeah, I knew how big an album it was, but I didn't have this on CD. This is not one of the CDs I had at this time. I'll say that much. Yeah,
it's interesting because you'll hear people be like, when Common dropped B, that was a moment. That was people will just say, when Common dropped B, then the rest of the story. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And that was, for me, again, I was a child. So Common and the conscious rap of Common's work wasn't really on my radar. The singles were. I'll say the singles were. B, the intro.
Yeah.
I feel like that did it a ton of commercials. The sync.
Yeah.
The sync numbers for that must be insane.
Yeah. A lot of people freestyled on that one too.
Exactly. So that is one of those where you can see, we talk about having a song where it just blows the doors off or it's just everywhere. B, the intro was one of those where it just I felt like people are freestyling over it.
Yeah.
You see the song in commercials, the songs in movies, the song was everywhere. right? So that's one of those songs that it's just immense. One of those that just like are it's almost bigger than the album.
Yeah, and Go as well, because Go on the course, you got Kanye and John Mayer.
Yeah,
like that was, I think, his biggest commercial hit at that time. He's had a couple more since then, but still, I think Go is the song you think of when you think of Common. And as well, I want to say this. Let's go back in time, because I think something that I realized with this review is Common's longevity isn't spoken about enough. His first album came out in 92. This is 13 years, well, really 14 years into his career that he had his album, his 6th studio album. That's pretty rare, I think, for any artist. Usually at the beginning is when you are the most popular. For him to have this huge moment in his 6th studio album, is there any, we don't really have that anymore. That's not even a thing. Like, you don't even make it to 6 studio albums. If you don't hit after album 1 or 2,
you're done.
You're not making it to album, 6. And then as well, kind of this being like a resurgence for him, because in the 90s, he was still very underground. His albums kind of had huge commercial success, but he was known in the rap scene, especially in Chicago. And then his work with the Soulquarians brought him into the 2000s. Now, for those who are unaware of the Soulquarians, initially it was D'Angelo, Questlove, and Jay Dilla. And then later...
Super group.
Yeah, that's a real super group. Sorry, Boy Genius. That's a real super group right there. And then they added on some other members, Erykah Badu, Roy Hargrove, James Poser, Bilal, Pino Palladino, Q-Tip, Mos Def, Talib Kweli, and Common. So that was how people knew him in the late 90s. Okay, he's with the Soulquarians. It was part of his image. And this album was a follow-up to Electric Circus. Now, that album, people said, was all over the place. Some good features on there. Pharrell's on there. Mary J. Blige is on that album twice. One of my favorite Common songs is from that album with him and Mary J. Blige, Come Close. But I want to know what your favorite Common song is. Is there a song that stands out to you that you're like, this is the Common song to me?
I think B is. I know that is very basic.
I don't think so.
You don't think that? I think it's very basic, because I feel like that was one of the songs. Maybe again, I want to stress to everybody, I was a child when this came out. Mm-hmm. So when this album did come out, I felt like I heard B all the time. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's just me or my I think to me, Go was that song I heard all the time. B was definitely a song I heard, but Go was a song that I felt like I heard all. And Go, again, was the radio hit out of those as well. But I'm like thinking back, and I'm like, I swear I was like hearing this in maybe I'm thinking of like a commercial that I cannot place right now.
But also maybe this is more like you're hearing this on commercials inside. I think I'm hearing Go outside.
Yeah. We're the same age. What are we talking about?
That has to be it, because Go was playing outside a lot. Like it was, playing like at parties on the radio, like in stores. Like Go was that record, Right. So maybe that's just what it is you weren't outside enough to hear Go.
No, in the 5th grade, I was not outside. I was on the playground, shooting hoops. Mm-hmm. I think that, B is the best one to me. I think the Food.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Those are my 2. Mm-hmm. I like Go, but not to the point where I'm like, this is it. This is the juice.
Yeah, I don't think Go's like that. That was kind of the era of like your single or your big hit isn't your best song. Yeah. I think Go's like a good example of that. For me, it's a cop-out, but I'm still going to count it as a Common song with him and Kanye West, My Way Home.
Oh.
That to me is like the best Common you're going to get. So that's what I would say is the best song. And then before we get into production, a couple things about the success of this project, going back in time. And then as well, what was happening when this song came out in terms of music. I think that's important.
Yeah.
As well. His debut at number 2 on the Billboard 200.
This was 20 years ago, by the way.
Yeah. So first week sales of 185,000. Now you'd probably be one of the best albums of the year. At that time, you're number 2. So
yeah, exactly.
Very, very different. Rolling Stone and Billboard named it one of their greatest hip-hop albums of all time. And this I saw while looking up some stuff about the project, which I completely forgot about. And I like to bring it up now because I don't know if we have something like this in the current era. Talking about his relationship with Erykah Badu, we don't have a new Erykah Badu who just runs around putting terror in men's hearts. Like we don't have someone like that in the new era. And there was a rumor that B stood for before Erykah.
Okay.
And obviously he had to clear that up. He said, I named it B to be who you are and be able to be in the moment and not try too hard. B is another way of saying just do without trying hard. Like I said, natural, and be true to the core of who you are. And this album, I wanted to just be and not go and exist as just an artist, not worried about the past. So I wanted to make it clear. not about Erykah, about myself. Nominated for Best Rap Album at the Grammys. Kanye called him the Marvin Gaye of rap during this time. I think that's obviously
massive praise.
Huge praise. And then what was happening at the moment? You know, this album came out May 24th. So, you know, basically a year
before late registration. A couple months before late registration.
Okay. So college dropout extension into late registration. May 24th, 2005. The number one song in the world at that time. Do you have any guesses? May 24th, 2005. Any guesses? It is a white woman. I'll give you that clue.
It was what? What?
The number one song in the world at that time on Billboard 200. It is a white woman, the number one song.
Fiona Apple.
What?
I don't know. I was thinking 2000s white women.
Okay.
Fiona Apple.
Not actually. You know what? Not a horrible guess.
Oh, when did Jagged Little Pills in the 90s?
Okay, you're thinking you're missing 90s and 2000s.
Yeah. Fiona Apple was dropping music in the 2000s.
No, for sure. But number one song, and Jagged Little Pill came out in 95.
Yeah,
so you're 100%. Okay.
Okay. No. Hold on. Avril Lavigne.
Okay, now you're onto something. But no, the song I actually heard performed this weekend.
Okay.
I was at a bar. They're doing covers of pop and rock from the 90s and 2000s. Gwen Stefani. Hollaback Girl.
Okay.
Yeah. Other songs on the chart, Since You've Been Gone, Let Me Love You, by Mario, Hate It or Love It, The Game 50 Cent, Oh, Sierra and Ludacris.
That's a huge track.
A huge tune. Lonely by Akon. 50 Cent had 3 songs in the top 10, Just a Little Bit and Candy Shop. And then this song was rising. It would eventually spend 16 weeks at number one. We Belong Together, Mariah Carey.
Oh.
So different time in music from where we are now. You know, are any of these artists still have a chance to top in the chart now? Probably not.
Mariah, but with the Christmas music.
Yeah, with new music.
Yeah.
With new music, probably not. Kelly Clarkson is hosting a TV show.
Yeah.
Bobby Valentino, don't know where he's at all. 50 Cent doesn't make music anymore.
Yeah.
Neither is Gwen Stefani. So Common is probably the only one from that group that we're naming who's still around. You know, last year got nominated for Best Rap Album at the Grammys.
Did.
So
yeah.
I just want to give him his chops for his longevity, because to be nominated for Best Rap Album literally 20 years apart, and the first time being 14 years into your career, that is, you know, something that we don't ever really see. Yeah,
this longevity is kind of unprecedented for hip hop. That's not really. I mean, well, actually, it's more precedented now. It's kind of, it's like sports. It's like, oh yeah, back then it's like you had a 10-year career, that was forever.
Yep.
But now if you have a 10-year career, be like, okay, you're on. You've been on for a while, but it's not unprecedented.
But even someone like him, like, it reminds me of Too Short, who Blow the Whistle came 20 years into his career. You know, like Common having this big success so late, I think that is unprecedented part, which we may not see again, is think of an artist like who's been so deep into their career and then had success. Like, and I wouldn't even call someone like Leon Thomas someone like that, because he wasn't on a major stage for that whole time. He was behind the scenes for a long time. So we never really see someone have, you know, this much time. And the closest I can think of in the modern era, which is not even hip hop, is probably Sabrina Carpenter right now.
Yeah.
This is like,
yeah, because that's like her 5th album or something.
Yeah, like her 6th album, I think. So around the same time. So for her to kind of blow up now, it's pretty interesting. But yeah, we don't really see any artists in any genre have the success so late into their careers.
Yeah. Being from Chicago helps though. Having Kanye West produce your music is pretty nice.
No, for sure. And it was a lot of momentum at that time. I think that goes into the production, because Kanye had kind of ushered us into this sound. And something that we're going to give Kanye his credit on this podcast, I apologize for anyone who doesn't want to hear that, but this is, we're talking about Common B. Like, you can't get around that.
He produced the entire thing. Literally. I think literally every song.
Not every single song, but a lot of the songs is him on the production.
Yeah.
And I think the part of what Kanye did, which was production, and I think even in the lyrics in this era, is blending the conscious rap with the kind of more flashy rap at the time.
Right.
And the more braggadocious rap at the time. And I think The Corner is one of those records where it's like, the song still has a soul. The drums stand out so much from like a boom bap standpoint. It's very skeletal feel to this record.
Yeah.
And then the use of the voices, it's like the choir and the voices part of the beat. It's like this kind of song definitely does not exist anymore. But I think in the 2000s, it was like, this is boom bap, but revitalized.
Wait, which one? Sorry?
The Corner.
Oh, The Corner. Yeah, The Corner is definitely an interesting song. I think that this is probably one of the best examples of early stage Kanye's music. These vocal samples, it still like has like the street feel to it.
Yeah.
Even though that it's not as gritty as, I'm trying to think of who's making shit right at that time.
50 at that time.
50, yeah. 50's music was more like bombastic almost. Like there's more things.
More
going.
explosive.
Yeah. That's what happens again when you, I mean, we're talking about now, at this point in time, in the early 2000s, we're talking about like legends of production in hip hop. We're doing music, some people like Dr. Dre, Timbaland, Kanye West.
Yeah.
So
The level.
Yeah, it's like the scale of what we're talking about production wise is pretty high. But yeah, so The Corner is one of those where I think is like a quintessential example of like early Kanye West's production. I think that it sounds really good. I think it definitely makes Common's raps feel closer to earth, like more grounded. I think that, especially with the title "The Corner," it makes it more like he's just like rapping outside. And I think that the drums and like the people, the vocals in the background, like it's almost like people are like talking to elevate Common to sounding as if he's rapping on the corner, and the people are kind of like walking past him.
Yeah.
So I think the aesthetic of that song is really good. I think the aesthetic of the entire album is actually kind of encapsulated in the song, where this album B is when I think of listening to it, I think of walking on the street.
Yes.
You know, I think of walking on the street. It's like maybe overcast or a sunny day, and this is kind of like the soundtrack to doing
this
that.
Is a good album to take public transit to your dead end.
Yeah,
job.
absolutely.
Like if you have a job you hate and you're taking public transit to it, this is the album for that.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's The Corner is a great example of that. Even The Food, which I think is maybe the best song, just like totally encapsulated, because now you're getting those like ragtime piano keys from Kanye, and you're still getting those vocals in the background. The hook is like, no, you know. So I think it's a fun song, but it's still off kilter compared to like most boom bap.
Yeah,
I think this is almost like a primogenitor to like Benny the Butcher and the other dude that I cannot stand, West Side Gun. Right? Where like the out of tune piano and these very like off kilter keys. It's kind of like, this is kind of one of those first iterations of really doing that. So I think that the production for that is cool too, because again, it's even hearkening to jazz's connection to hip hop. Obviously, they're from Chicago, so the connection's even stronger there.
Yes.
So I like that song a lot. The production is really obviously very well done.
Yes.
This is Kanye West, early Kanye West.
Yeah, the keys are all over this album. I think that's something I didn't think about when I was younger, obviously. But hearing the album now, like even on Go, which feels like one of the like less well-produced songs on here, it feels kind of basic compared to what else is going on here. But the light keys mixed with the drums is like such a Kanye style. It reminds me of Heard Him Say.
Right.
And it really gives that kind of energy. And I think too, it's like, this was a version of hip hop that was like budding up at this point. I always think back to the Black Star album, and I'm like, that was like the transition from the 90s sound into the 2000s. Now, why I mentioned all those songs happening at this time is this was not the like sound everyone was doing.
No.
Like Kanye was doing this. Jay-Z had some of this on his records.
And that was it.
But it was not the popular sound at all.
No.
You know, and I think this album helped make that kind of grow in a sense of the popular sound of is like, these are actually more fun to listen to. It's like his content might not be the same content that Jay-Z and DMX are doing, but you're giving him kind of a better canvas to rap on than something that's a little more boring. So I think Go to me is an example of that. And then the scratching at the end of Go, it's like, this is like kind of the part of this album is so hip hop to its core in a way.
Yeah, they love a record scratch. Multiple songs of record scratching.
But the last 30 seconds is like it's like that being on the single of an album is like, that's almost nonsensical. You know what I mean? Like, it's weird that records have like a whole scratch 20-second section in them, period. But to have that on the single, I was like, yeah, this was when we were still saying, hey, ha, hip, ha. So hearing that, it's like, I like it on the record, but it's reminding me of like, we don't get that now. And even what you talk about Benny or Westside, even Joey Badass, someone like Ab Soul, it's like, they're considered more like lyrical rappers today. No one is putting a 30-second scratch on the record, you know? So it's like, even the idea of what real rap is today has changed so much in the past 20 years.
I agree. I would say that listening to B and even Go is a great example of this. Everything we're talking about is how much hip hop has progressed from this sound. Remember, we're talking about the person who produced this is Kanye West.
Yeah.
Kanye West is also made Yeezus.
Yep. Yep.
Right? And when I listen to pretty much every song, like any song from this, what struck me, because this review is really the first time I've listened to this album in full. What struck me was how simple the production sounds compared to what hip hop's production sounds like today.
Yes.
It's such a massive change. But what also occurred to me was that Kanye is like mastering and like, you know, rejiggering the sound.
Yeah.
But then has also done things like Yeezus and 808s and Heartbreaks, where those two albums in particular literally blew the doors off of what hip hop sounded like.
Yep.
And for this album to be produced and executive produced by Kanye, and then if you think about if you said to somebody this, like if you said to somebody a third particular artist is influenced by Kanye, inspired by Kanye, what that music actually sounds like and what that music you think that sounds like and what they make is so drastically different from what this sounds like, even though it's the same person. It just like really occurred to me. I'm like, even though this is 20 years ago now, the progression of hip hop's music is so far from what this is now that it really starts to feel like this is like a relic now, not in a bad way.
No, it is, and I think this is a relic in the good way. Like, I think in a sense this is almost the kind of sound people think of when they talk about like old school music, because this almost sounds more old school than some albums in the 90s.
Yeah, because here's what the song we were talking about was Go with the record scratching on it. A perfect example of this is a group that everybody says is so obviously inspired by or influenced by Kanye, Brockhampton, right? And I Brockhampton is, you know, I think on Saturation 2 and 3, pure record scratching. There's record scratching on pretty much every song. But that's it. Like, think of what Brockhampton's music sounds like, especially something like Zipper or Heat, Gold, those songs, right? They sound nothing like this, but everybody's like, yeah, they met on the Kanye West forum. They love Kanye, or at the time they loved Kanye, and they're super inspired by him. That shit sounds nothing like this, except for the record scratch. That's the only thing that you can really look at from B or from this era of Kanye's production that has translated to what music sounds like today, really.
This to me is probably the end of the divide in hip hop in this way. Obviously, hip hop has many different sounds in 2025.
Yeah.
So it's divided almost in too many directions in a sense. But why I call this the end of the divide is, you know, for those who weren't there, it really was you had to pick a side. Kanye was kind of the first bridge of the cool rappers and the conscious rappers. And if you look at a lot of the people I named from that time, it's like you have Mos Def, Talib Kweli, Common over on this side. And on the other side, it's 50 Cent, DMX, Ja Rule, Jay-Z. And, you know, you kind of had to choose which lane you go into. Now, in 2025, that sounds ridiculous. You know, like that's not a thing at all anymore. And I think this was probably the last album that was like so much on one side.
Yeah, it's funny because like the same person that listens to Benny the Butcher or Westside Gun also listens to Playboi Carti. That's the same person.
Yeah.
Right? And that person also listens to Drake. So that divide that you're talking about, like it's disintegrated pretty easily.
It's done. And why I mentioned this is the end of it is because Late Registration you mentioned, which came a year later, or in the same year, is like not as quote unquote hip hop as this.
Yeah.
You know, it's like this is really such Kanye sound, But, on the next album, it's a lot more strings. You have songs like Crack Music, Drive Slow.
Yeah.
Like, not at all what this ended up being. So it's like, this is probably the one time in a producer's career where they kind of get to make the rawest form of their sound instead of making the more overproduced version of that sound. My favorite song on here production-wise, and that's maybe because it reminds me of this era when it was like, almost like when chopping samples like this was new, and you were like, "Oh my god,
wow, look at this!
You heard the sample at the start of the song, and you were like, "Okay,
you're just doing that with the drum pad. You could do that."
That one is Testify, and I think like that kind of style of sampling.
You like that song?
Well, for sure.
That's my least favorite song.
Okay.
Least, go ahead.
But that style of sampling was like crack at that time. I think of songs like All Falls Down, even Diamonds, where like the sample runs through the track, but it's also the hook. It's like that was like a formula that couldn't miss at that point. And it felt like Kanye had mastered it more than obviously anybody else. And then the thing about that song is that song was a single in 2005. And it's funny because I have that song on my lyrics as well. So we talk about that, we'll mention it. But that kind of song, rare in this era for sure. I think lyrically, the kind of artist that makes that a single, like who makes that a single in this era? It's like even that's not even like the only like conceptual song on this project. There's a ton of them, but what kind of artist in 2025 makes a song like that their single? I can't even think of one.
Yeah,
it really reminded me of a song like Keisha from Dave East.
Vince Staples, maybe?
Vince Staples, but would you make it a single though?
No, not a single. But it would be on his album.
It's like the Dave East one is a different topic, but it's almost like I'm telling you a story, and the third verse is like a switch up on the story. So I like that, but even that simple kind of literary device in hip hop, like, do we have that anymore? Like that feels like such a rare thing for people to do. So that song felt like a relic to me as well. The style of sampling, the topic of the song, and that song being a single, and shout out to our boy Michael Jackson who created the a mini movie video for this song. Like
different. That's just different. That doesn't even exist today.
Like, and for this record, like you have a record with Kanye West and John Mayer in 2005. And you say, nope, this is the one.
Yeah,
let's pour the money into this. So just such a different time.
I know. There's even They Say with John Legend on it. Yeah. It's like, we'll keep that in the tuck. Second last song. Can you imagine today? Second last song you have Common, John Legend and Kanye West.
Like no, never.
They would fire your A&R guy literally the day of.
That might be the last song on a DJ Khaled album.
Yeah,
like maybe a DJ Khaled album, a different tone. Maybe that's the one to start for.
Okay, so the production phenomenal. I think that Testify is probably the only one I don't like production wise. Faithful, it's okay. Lyrically. Do you have any lyrics that you want to highlight? I remember you were talking about Testify that you want to highlight.
Yes. Lyrically is where I think I like this album more on this listen than I did before. And maybe because I'm an adult now.
Yeah, probably.
Maybe that is a big part of it. But something about the lyrics on this project that I realized is so much of these songs actually are about something and have a topic.
Yeah, all of them actually, which is...
Crazy,
can you believe it?
Crazy now. And it's funny, when I was younger, one of my best friends, Josh, we were like on opposite sides. He was a big 50 Cent fan. 50 Cent in the Walkman, Get Rich or Die Trying. I was a big Kanye West fan. College dropout, late registration, graduation. That's what I had in my Walkman. And we used to always argue back and forth about who was better. And I said to him, I said, obviously I think Kanye is better, but I had respect for 50 because he felt like one of the first rappers of that generation to be on the fun stuff, gangster lifestyle, but still every song had a topic. And I think that was like almost a winning formula for him in a sense that people weren't doing that at all. Common also come from the conscious side. This is like overly doing it on every song because I think Common's albums since then have not been a topic every song like this album was.
Right.
And I think this album being so concise lyrically is part of why the classic right away, because I can't think of an album, period, any artist now who every song has like a real topic like this one. Like they might be rapping about things, so it's not rapping about nothing, but every song is like, he can tell you what the song is about. So
there's a theme.
A theme to every record.
Sometimes a story. Can you believe it?
Yeah, and Testify is one of those. And this song is basically about The wife testifying against the husband when she committed the crime, which don't we love that? That sounds like a great Tyler Perry movie in the works. On verse 1, he says, she walked in the court, her knees buckle, saying for a man to survive, he needn't hustle. Seeing and being through struggle her whole life, made a transition from being his hoe to his wife. Sitting the night up and the ATF bust in. Her daddy was a hustler, so she loved him. Looked at the jury, how can they judge him? She screamed, and then you hear the sample.
Yeah.
Before you lock my love away. That's all you guys get. That's all you guys get. Then in verse 2, he continues, fear in her chest, her face with tears, had her man's back. He was facing years. In her name, through the place was his. They're trying to take everything except the kids. For years, she'd been through scuffle and fights while he trying to hustle that white. Up all night, wondering if he's alive. Seeing him tried, she bubbled inside and screamed. And then in the last verse, I'm not going to read that to you, but that's where everything flips on its head. And she's the one actually doing all this stuff. Mm-hmm. But I think, this him laying that out in a record, that there's kind of a visual element to even the words he's using. If you can kind of like see the story unfolding. Yeah. I think that kind of rapping, we don't see as much anymore. When you think about this album being 20 years old, it's like, we talk about that kind of rapping like it's 40 years away, when it really was not that far away when this was happening. And then as well, I think even this kind of record coming from Common, I don't know if Common is the kind of person I would guess to make a record like this on this topic.
I'm surprised.
Like a hustler who's going to jail, his wife testifying against him, and she's the one who did it. Like that seems like more like a tragic story I would feel like Cameron might tell, or someone like that. So I like that Common is the one telling us this story, but this is one of those songs lyrically that I was like, great job by him, of course. But I'm like, when are we going to see something like this from somebody new?
Yeah, I think that song like that, again, I think the Vince Staples, When Sparks Fly?
Yeah.
On that album. Or was it the song, When Sparks Fly?
When Sparks Fly, yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely one of his best songs. And it's kind of like or similar to this. I think that listening to Common or any rapper from this time period, you're really seeing a handful of things. I want to be careful. We're talking about this situation because I think that the complexity of the rapping was much higher during this period of rap music. This is probably one of the highest points, like late 90s, early 2000s, mid 2000s. This is when being a rapper technically as best as possible, like being the best rapper technically was probably the most celebrated it was. And this was probably, I want to say, near the apex of people's rapping ability and it being on the songs. And this is why the song is popular. Okay. And I think now that is no longer the case. We were talking about production before. The production is king right now. Right. So I think that Common is one of those rappers where everything slides into place. I think it's Faithful or Testified. That's the only time where I was like, the rapping is a little bit out of sorts. But when you on a song like Go, which is I think I mentioned this is one of my favorite songs, Go, where he's on verse 1. This is where Common is actually funny. Doing a little funny, a little horny. I didn't think he got down like that, but allegedly he does. Okay, verse 1. She was bad, The type at the club niggas would grab her. Fantasize when I had her in the bathroom sweating with her ass up. The body of a dancer. We had chemistry because she was a cancer. Thought forever I would last for her, but forever moves faster, so I had to. Still, I gotta pause. When I think about her in them draws. And baby, she like it raw. Like rain, when she came, it poured. And like a car that I can't afford. I would want it, and I want it some more. The positions our frames explored. Let me know she was secure. Back for more. I want to go. So a little bit funny. I mean, first of all, I think this line, the body of a dancer, we had chemistry because she was a cancer, that translates very well to 2025.
Yes.
That one is probably that one had staying power that was probably like a throw off in the 2005s. I guess people were talking about horoscopes, but not like they are today. But now that is like, that's a highlight reel. Like I had to write that down. I'm like, hold on a second, this guy's talking about horoscopes. So yeah, that was funny. But obviously the things that he was saying afterwards, like it, I didn't know Common was rapping about doing it raw. I didn't know that was his bag. I did not know it was his bag, but clearly it is. So I thought that it was just like, first of all, it was funny. But I also thought, okay, he gets down, he can mask it a little bit. Because again, when you're somebody that has complex rhymes, I don't even want to say that what he was rapping about was really complex. But when the songs are more complex in the rhyme scheme, then you can mask those things that are sexually explicit, basically. And it not coming across that way. Look at this man's face. Okay.
Look at the hat.
Look at his hat. Look at his face. This is not a person that I think got down like that, but clearly he did.
In 2025, Common's putting up some numbers, so I got to give him his respect.
Yeah.
It's one of the first rap songs I probably knew front to back ever in my life.
Wow.
So I got to shout out to this one.
At such a young age, rapping about doing it wrong.
Something's never changed. But I think
Lollipop was coming out around this time, guys. Please, we were rapping about that shit.
But I think what is cool about this song is this is a song that kind of steers the most away from his regular themes in his music.
Yeah.
And for that to be the single, it's kind of like almost serendipitous in a way of like the one time you rap about something else, it becomes a hit song, you know? Because I think that's like something that really even resonates today in terms of artists trying to make a hit. You know, it's like, listen, you're too serious. Rap about something more light and more fun. It'll work out for you. Common's an example of that working out for him. Because this is a time when, you know, it takes this tone. What I like about this record is, you're right, it's a little more racy lyrically than he's done in the past. But on a song like Come Close, he had Mary J. Blige from the previous project. He had shown he can have more of a romantic song and not just be conscious. So I like to see this side of him. My last set of lyrics is from The Corner. Okay. One of my favorite songs from this project. This is on verse 3. And this is one of those songs where I think Common, to me, he's not the most underrated rapper of all time. I think that's Big Boy from Outkast.
Yeah.
But I would put Common on that list because I think that he's from an era where people, I guess, think people no one was rapping well at that time when it's the 90s. Like a lot of great stuff came out in 92. But I think that the way that he puts songs together has always been underrated. And The Corner is one of them. In verse 3, he says, Black church services, murderers, Arab serving burgers. As cats with gold permanents move their bags as herbalists. The dirt isn't just fertile, it's people working and earning this. The curb getters go where the cash flow and the current is. It's so hot that niggas burn to live. The furnaces where the money move and the determined live. We talk shit, play lotto, and buy German beers. It's so black, packed with the action that's affirmative. He's talking about the kind of the same streets 50's talking about.
Yeah. Different though.
Very different. And that's the genius of this song to me, is that he's never claimed to be street. He said, I know how it goes over there.
Yeah, he's an observer.
I'm from there, I live there, but I don't do what y'all do. And I think just having that, I think, viewpoint of it is something we see way more now. Like this is part of, I think, what Kanye and Common had a part in this, bringing to the mainstream was the rappers who know the street but aren't from the street. We talk about the big three, Drake, J. Cole, Kendrick Lamar. All three of them are part of that group, you know? So I think that kind of theme in hip hop, this is a part of that. And again, I would say ahead of his time, because this is, you know, what a lot of hip hop is now. But the part where he says, Black church services, murderers, right back to back. It's like both are happening. Like this is the street. Like you can get both. They're both happening at the same time. And then I think, you know, that the whole point of the song is kind of like people working hard and going after it.
Yeah.
That is my favorite part of this verse that ended off him saying, the dirt isn't just fertile, it's people working and earning this. And he kind of shouts out all different ways of it happening. He's like, everyone just wants to make it. However they do it, you know, different strokes, different folks. But this whole song is really about acknowledging all the different ways that things are happening.
Yeah, I think that Common's ability to observe these things and then rap about them in a way that's more poetic like I sometimes I try to shy away from saying poetic about the way people rap because it's rap, so it's kind of
it's supposed to be
it's
poetry,
kind of,
yeah.
But his is it's different, you know, like where you're. I think maybe, I think the way that because even if somebody like Pop Smoke or the way he raps about the street, it's still poetic, but it's much more dark and it's much more gritty and it's a much more almost like first person. Common when he's rapping about it is third person, but there's like a juxtaposition of like the churchgoers and the murderers right next to each other.
Yes.
And even like the imagery of cats with permanent gold permanence move they bags as herbalists. Like these are combinations that somebody like Lil B. Or not Lil B, Lil Baby.
Lil B too.
Lil B might actually, he would actually say some shit like that. But Lil Baby or Gunna or something like that, they just don't make that connection, right? The connection is just different, right? Where they're not making like the imagery of cats with gold, like an actual cat with gold permanence, moving bags as herbalist. They're not even saying herbalist. Herbalist is not in their lexicon.
Even the way he's saying, I think that's the part too that is lost completely, is like, cats with gold permanents moving their bags as herbalists. It's talking about dudes with grills selling drugs.
Yeah.
You know, it's like another rapper, even in today, could talk about dudes with grills selling drugs.
Yeah, but it's different. Like
it's not as poetic. So even I think you're right, in the way that he's choosing to say it, he's not like, it's the same person. It's the same person he's talking about, but it's the way he's describing them, I think, is an intentional choice that works great here.
Yeah, because that's one line. Like he fits that in one line versus most people that's 3-4 lines, maybe the whole fucking verse.
Yes,
right?
yes.
So that's just like what I'm talking about. Like the complexity of rapping was just higher at that point in time. And the last thing I want to mention for lyrics, and this is short, with Kanye, this is on They Say. And first of all, it's just sad. Like when I'm listening to Kanye's music from this period of time today, it's just really sad. It's actually sad. I don't know how else to explain it other than it's sad. For example, where the best example is like okay, but God don't ever give me nothing I can't handle. So please don't ever give me records I can't sample, which is pretty funny. So I can vacate where it ain't no channels, but it's okay for a gangster to wear sandals. They say because of the fame and stardom. They say because of the fame and stardom, I'm somewhere in between church and an insane asylum. I guess it's messing with my health then. And this verse so crazy, when I finish, I'm gonna go check myself in again. And that portion is just sad. Like back then it was probably funny. And a little bit of in your face. Now it's kind of just sad, because of pretty much everything Kanye's been doing or been through or been doing to people, like everything since then encapsulated and brought back to this, just like makes this sequence really sad. It's kind of like when I was watching, just to liven things up a little bit. When I was watching Sex and the City, shout out to my Sex and the City article that will be out by the time that this podcast comes out. When Mr. Big, they meet Mr. Big for the first time, the group Mr. Big for the first time, and Samantha's explaining, is like, yeah, he's like people are calling him the next Donald Trump. And like just that one line, people are calling him the next Donald Trump, 20 years into 30 years into the future is like, that is such a loaded statement. You guys have no idea what you're doing. And it's kind of the same.
Crazy.
So when it comes to this, it's like, this verse, it's just like there's a dark tinge to it that didn't exist back then, but now listening back to it, it's sad, man. It's really fucking sad. I don't know, it's just sad.
Yeah, it's such a different look at the lyrics of this era, and this is what people were rapping about. There aren't that many lyrics on here that are like very time sensitive, which I thought was interesting. I thought there would be more of those in being an album that's 20 years old, but there aren't that many times when I'm like, oh, this is kind of an odd take how that ages.
Yeah.
So I was very impressed by that. I want to talk about how this worked out for his career because I mentioned it earlier.
Put him on, back on. He was on a little bit. Fell off.
This kind of put him on, I think, to a whole larger crowd. Like, I don't know if I know who Common is like that, really.
True.
If this album comes out, someone my age at least.
Yeah.
And then as well, like, the longevity he had after that. Like, he's almost like a staple in culture and media in some way that we're just used to it. But I'll say it again. He put out his first song in 1991. Like, that's not the other day. That's a long, long time ago. His follow-up album to this, Finding Forever, came out in 2007. Was also nominated for Best Rap Album of the Year at the Grammys. So, clearly put him in that category. Like I said before, his album that came out in 2024, The Auditorium Volume 1 with him and Pete Rock, also nominated for Best Rap Album at the Grammys. So to have, again, those 20 years apart, I think is incredible. He made his Broadway acting debut in 2023 for his performance in Between Riverside and Crazy, which won a Pulitzer Prize for drama.
Wow.
His song Letter to the Free was released as part of the documentary The 13th.
Wow.
If you haven't seen it, go watch that. He won a Primetime Emmy for that. So he's doing okay.
He's doing all right.
He's doing all right. And I think at this point, he's kind of almost ahead of Kanye in a sense, when Kanye was a big part of, pushing B to be what it was in terms of people actually being excited for it. So to see what he's become since then, I don't know if in 2005 people thought Common would be more actor than anything. I thought that's pretty interesting. And then as well to have all this success, in movies, on the stage, in TV shows, his songs being nominated for Oscars. Like, I think he's been doing that for so long now, we're used to it. But I don't know if you knew that Common in 2004, that was what was going to happen 20 years from now.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I don't think that people thought he would be escalating to this level. Maybe they did because of the strength of his ability to rap. They're like, oh, don't worry, you're going to blow. Eventually it's going to happen, blah, blah, blah. But for, it actually needs to happen. Eventually is great, but it actually eventually needs to happen at some point.
I like that.
Right? So I think that it was huge for him, obviously. Him being able to, if you really think about the team up that he did, the fact that you can get Kanye to produce basically your entire album. I think there's only 2 songs that are not produced by him, and he's the executive producer. And for you to be the lyricist, rapper, conscious rapper, and for you guys to even be on the same wavelength is crazy, right? So it was a big deal just for hip hop in general. And we've been talking about like how and why and like, the different things sprouting out of it. So I think it's huge for his career. Obviously.
Yes.
I would say it's not that big for Kanye just because Kanye has so many other things. I think maybe at the time it was huge. It was a big deal.
Here's what I was going to say. I think at the time is the way to put it because there's 2 things. This was one of the first releases on Good Music as a label. This was Common's first time on Good Music as a label. When you go back to, even 10 years later with Pusha T, like I look at Common as a template for what Pusha T became. Like B is where he said, Common, I'm going to take all the best parts about what you do and hone in on them. I think he did the same thing with Pusha T. We've gotten great albums from that. So that's one. And then as well, I think in terms of the idea of what like backpack rap was, like this was like a really popular subgenre. This was almost like the core of what makes people say this is what real hip hop is.
That's so true.
I think like that is not exist anymore at all. I think a lot of people, the associated favorite rappers are not backpack rappers. That's not really a thing. And then as well, like Common as a household name, if you look at the other quote unquote backpack rappers from his era, he's by and large way ahead of a bunch of them. Cannabis, Mos Def, Talib, like none of those guys are on Common's level in terms of what he's doing in totality. So to me, I think, obviously helps his career, but to see what he's become, it's almost like LL Cool J in a way where it's like our generation doesn't even really properly understand LL Cool J at all. Some of our favorite rappers are saying they won't battle LL Cool J.
Yeah, that's true.
And we think of him as the TV guy, And I think Common is like that where he's known more as a actor than anything else. Like I think about myself, like I've interviewed Common before for his acting. For his music, maybe never happened. So I think for him to be so respected as an artist, but then transition to where he's so respected as an actor, very, very rare. Maybe one day we'll do the best rapper actors list. But
Tupac on that list?
Common got to be higher than Tupac.
Okay. Respectfully.
Let's talk about the cover. Let's talk about the cover.
I think the cover is really good. I think that the whimsy of the album is reflected pretty well in his face. The color, like it's an interesting color. Like,
you know what's funny? I think, and I'm kind of wearing the color, so I got to.
But it's like more yellow.
No, it's yellow and even a little tinge of green towards the bottom. But I think when I think of Common this album, I think of kind of like these earth tones, and I feel like that just gave Backpack Conscious Rap these earth tones. So I think in a way it matches the actual color of the music. I think about the album you have behind you. Lil Sim, Sometimes I Introvert, amazing
Classic.
album, but the same colors, and it's kind of the similar vibe. So I think like,
look at you.
No, but I think that's kind of like the vibe for this version of hip hop and this sound is this color, like in perpetuity.
Right.
You know, I think there's other stuff that had this color before, but I think when you visualize this sound and this era and this kind of music, you think of this color. Like when I think of the Soulquarians, I think of this color. So I think that they did a good job of kind of tripling, quadrupling down on this color. And even knowing that this color is so synonymous with this like subculture and era.
Yeah. Okay. You know, you can have the color and such. I think I like the picture of his face though. I like the happiness because there's a lot of happiness on this album.
Yes.
A lot of black joy on this. So I'm a positive on the album cover. It could be a little bit more positive if there was more colors.
No, for sure. But we love the Black Boy Joy. The Black Boy Joy.
Yeah. How do you feel about this being a no skips?
Ooh, I don't know if it's a no skips, but I think it could be. Like this is a project where it's better as a whole project.
Right. Yeah.
So I think it's not necessarily for me, but I think that it could be because I have listened to this project like just all the way through.
Me too.
Plenty of time. So I just don't think of it as that. There are some songs where I'm like, okay, let me go hear this.
Right.
Let me go hear this. So it's something like more or less, but it could be.
I would say it's not a no skips because I find myself skipping Testify pretty regularly.
Yeah.
Even though that's bad, I feel like that's bad to say because it's probably the best lyrical
one
song.
of them, yeah.
But not fun to listen to. It's not like fun to listen to. The song's like Go is that's a fun song.
Yes.
And there's still messages happening in that. Same with The Food, that's a fun song. There's messages happening in that. So I would say no, it's not a no skips. Is it a vinyl cop?
I would cop the vinyl. 11 tracks, 42 minutes.
Yeah.
And the production on here is so rich. Like it really is that perfect mix of like jazz and soul music and hip hop. Like production, like if there was an instrumental of this vinyl, like I would probably get that before I get this if there was that.
The anniversary edition, I don't know if it's on vinyl.
Yeah, but I think like this is one of those albums just sonically that it's like, yeah, I can play it. And I think what it is it reminds me of some of my soul records with rapping on them. You know, it's like, you know, production-wise, very much a soul record, but he's rapping on every song. Kind of a good mix of both. So it's a vinyl cop for me.
Okay. I would say a tentative yes as a vinyl cop because I think a lot of the songs are really fucking good. Really fucking good. So with that being said, what is your score?
Commons B released May 24th, 2005. It's an 8.5 for me.
Okay.
I was kind of unsure of where I was going to go with my review here because I'm actually pretty familiar with this project
I am not.
in terms of listening to it like in full, but I hadn't really done a deep dive on like the songs in particular. You know, it's one of the albums I listen to more in full than particular records. And I think this...
You listen to this regularly?
What's regularly? Like at least once a year probably.
Okay.
But I think that this album is actually better now than it was before. This album, I think, is aged amazingly. I think these are a lot of these records that are like, you know, as an adult, you enjoy more in terms of where music is, you enjoy more. And then the musicality of a lot of these songs, it's like they felt skeletal in 2005.
Yeah.
And now they feels just right.
Yeah.
It feels just right with so much going on in terms of other production in the genre.
Yeah, I agree.
So to me, this is 8.5. And I thought about this in terms of what if this was like an album mode in the moment record? This would make a top 10, I think, for us. Like this could be in our top 10 albums of the year for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think My score for Common's B. Classic. I'm going to put it 8.5 out of 10 as well.
Okay.
I think that the rapping is top notch, except for on a couple of songs, but top notch. I think the production, you're watching a master at work in Kanye West. I think that what you said about the production, where it's a breath of fresh air compared to everything else that's happening right now. There's so many, like, it's just so complex the way hip hop sounds currently. There's so much shit happening, especially if you're a person that listens to rage music.
Yeah.
If you listen to Travis,
even trap,
even trap, like Travis Scott, like, you know, if you're listening to even a Gunna song right now, like if you listen to Drip Too Hard, like go listen to Drip Too Hard right after listening to this, and you realize like there's a lot of shit happening in Drip Too Hard.
The song I thought of, which is along the same lines as March Madness.
Yeah.
And I'm like, obviously 2 different settings for both of those records, but just hearing how different they sound production-wise is like almost in 2 different worlds.
Yeah, so there's a breath of fresh air in the production, but the production is just phenomenal regardless. I like the aesthetic because, again, you can, like, listening to it, you feel like you need to go outside and just walk down the street. Have a nice drive on a sunny day. And to be able to capture an aesthetic like that, especially in hip-hop, is becoming increasingly more rare.
Yes.
So I'm going to applaud it for that. I think it's great. I think this is a great album. It's a classic. Obviously, again, I mentioned at the top, there's just people who just say, when B came out, then the rest of the story, you know? Yeah. So it is also just like something that's like an artifact in hip hop that you can reach back to and touch, and everybody will appreciate it. I think even can be a younger listener and listen to it, older listener, listen to it. It's got a lot of things for a lot of different people. Messages are good too. So it's great. 8.5 out of 10. It even has a couple of songs that knock my socks off. So 8.5, there's a couple of songs I didn't really like. That's the only reason why. But great album.
Yeah, I want to hear what everyone thinks in the comments. You can comment on Spotify now. You can comment on YouTube. What do you think of this project, listening to it back 20 years later, for those of you who are of age? Those of you who are not of age, tell us what you think. First-time listeners, what common song thing would people know if they weren't around for this? That's kind of what I want to know.
B, I think the instrumental for B.
Maybe instrumental would be, for sure. I think there's a couple here that have made it onto some J. Cole mixtapes, have been used
there's
before.
A couple of songs that are sampled.
Yeah, and as well, like in the whole blog era freestyles, Testify was one of those, The Corner as well.
Yeah.
Even Shy City. So I think people might be familiar with the production on here.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
First-time listeners, I want to know what you guys think. Of course, you can find us on the interwebs at Album Mode Pod, on Twitter, Album Mode Pod, on TikTok, Album Mode Pod, on Instagram. YouTube people, subscribe to us, like this video, leave us a comment, and of course, until next time, know yourself, know your worth.
Later days.